It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for the Walking Dead universe. This is gonna be a video for Isle of the Dead, one of the new spin-offs that are gonna be coming up for the Walking Dead universe. In this video, I'm gonna be sharing my expectations and predictions about the show. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break it all down. Alright, as always, before we jump into this, smash that like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. Let's dive right into it. So, of course, some of the things that we know about Isle of the Dead is that it's going to feature two of the main characters from the original show, none other than Negan Smith and Maggie Rhee. And we also know that this show is going to take the survivors to Manhattan, New York, which is far, far away from where they are right now, which is in Virginia, a few miles outside of Washington, D.C. Now, as far as what my expectations are not necessarily my predictions. My expectations don't necessarily line up with what I'm predicting they're gonna do. I'll speak a little bit about what I'm predicting they're gonna do at the end, but for the most part, I think they're gonna hit most of the things that I'm expecting that I want them to do. But there's a few things that I think they're gonna do outside of what I'm expecting that I'm really on the fence about. It really depends on where they want this show to go. But as far as my expectations, I think one of the key things in this particular spinoff is going to be getting the dynamic between these two characters, Maggie and Negan, who definitely have had their ups and downs. They have a history together. Negan introduced himself to Maggie by killing Maggie's husband, Glenn, in a brutal fashion. And that's still something that lingers in the back of Maggie's mind, and it could never go away. But what we have seen recently in the original show is these two characters not necessarily working together, but learning to work together in a way. But what I'm expecting them to do in this spin-off is to take that one level up and to take these two characters from just learning to work with each other to actually helping each other and having each other's backs to reach some sort of a common goal. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be buddies. What I'm saying is that there has to be a common goal that both of these characters are trying to achieve, and it has to be in such a way where they can't do it without the other. For example, when they got to the subway stations, Maggie relied on Negan to give them directions. Not because she liked Negan or that she wanted him to help out. It was because they were desperate. They needed Negan's help. So I'm expecting them to do things like that, but with a lot more layers and with a lot more at stake. It all depends what they want to do, but it has to be something big. We can't have Negan and Maggie going on a journey to New York for regular supplies and food and stuff like that. It has to be much, much bigger. It has to involve the whole universe. And this is where the Commonwealth versus Civic Republic military storyline could come into the picture. Depending on what they do in the last 8 episodes of the original show, they could build up all that they need for this to work out. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Negan and Maggie are gonna join Commonwealth to go to Manhattan to fight CRM. That's not what I'm talking about. Obviously, the actual war between CRM and Commonwealth, which everyone is expecting, is most likely gonna be in the movies. But what I am expecting them to do is something along the lines of Maggie and Negan, once they find out about the connections between the Commonwealth and CRM, decide to go to New York to investigate how deep this goes and how large the CRM really are. Obviously, having a character like Mercer would do a lot in giving Maggie more context into what this group really could be all about. Obviously, Mercer is not going to know everything. Even someone like Lance and Pamela, who are probably the first point of contact between Commonwealth and CRM may not know too much about the CRM. Knowing how secretive the CRM is, they're probably not going to reveal too much about themselves, especially to another large organization. Not as large as them, but still, an organization that's significantly bigger than most of the other communities and colonies that we've seen. They're not going to give that information up to them. No matter how much information Maggie and Negan can find out about the CRM by just learning about Commonwealth and CRM's connections and kind of exposing this connection, there's going to be a lot more to expose and to learn about them, which I think is what they're going to do in the spin-off. And the thing that adds more layers to this story is Rick Grimes himself. Now, I'm not expecting Rick to appear in the spin-off or anything, but what I think is most likely going to happen is something along the lines of the group finding out that Rick was traded to the CRM and building different parties to go after him. Each may be pursuing some sort of clue that could get them to Rick. In the case of Daryl, the clue that he might find or what he might pursue is something that's going to take him to Europe. In the case of Negan and Maggie, what they find may lead them to New York. Now let's step back for a sec. What if it has nothing to do with the CRM? Is there any other possibility? Yes, and that goes to what I think they're going to do, which I'm going to get to a little bit later. But at the end of the day, even what I think they're going to do may actually tie in with the CRM in some shape or form. But we're going to get to that in just a little bit. But as far as my expectations go, there's another huge expectation, which is New York. They have marketed this spin-off to be the post-apocalyptic Walking Dead universe in Manhattan, New York. So anything they give us short of that would be disappointing. So I'm expecting us to actually get the apocalyptic New York atmosphere. We have to get that vibe. They have to give us the New York environment. They can't just either rely on a lot of indoors filming to not have to show the environment, and they can't just give us any cityscape that is similar to New York. We need to get New York. Like, they need to show us some of these iconic locations in New York for it to really feel like this is New York. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, it might as well just be in Boston or Seattle or whatever. You know what I mean? For them to have marketed it as being in New York, they need to deliver. This obviously has a lot to do with the budget. It all depends on the budget that they're gonna get. And what I'm predicting is that the budget is not gonna be where it needs to be. I don't think that they're gonna be given enough budget to do it justice. Like, for those fans expecting us to see something similar to World War Z, that type of scope, or even I Am Legend, which was obviously also in New York. I don't think that it's realistic to expect something like those things. I think they're gonna do something in the middle. Again, this goes back to what I'm actually predicting, which I'll get back to in just a few minutes. But the next thing that I'm expecting is something to do with Herschel Jr. I think what they did in one of the episodes of season 11 was a fantastic way to build up a story for the future where a much older Herschel Jr. and Negan and most likely Maggie can work together and become a sort of unstoppable team. And again, because of the history between all of these characters, that could be a great bond that you can't really break. You know what I mean? At least when it comes to Negan. With Maggie and Herschel Jr. towards Negan, it could be a little different, but I could see a scenario where Negan would put his life to save Herschel Jr. and even Maggie. So I'm expecting some sort of a storyline that involves Maggie, Negan, and Herschel Jr. This actually ties in very nicely to my last expectations, which is Negan's Sacrifice. Yes, it's a bold prediction or expectation, but I am expecting Negan to sacrifice himself at the end of the day in the spin-off to save either Herschel Jr. or Maggie. It's probably not gonna happen right away. Like, it would be super disappointing if Negan dies in the first episode of the spin-off, but I feel like that should be in the cards. In the comic book, they didn't necessarily go that route, but I think that's where it was a little disappointing as far as Negan's story. Like, it was just sort of underwhelming. Nothing really happened with him at the end. Like, his story didn't come to a full conclusion. So I feel like they have to address that in the spin-off. Now, it might not necessarily end with Negan getting killed, but it might end with him getting severely injured to a point of possible death. And again, that goes to what I feel like they might be doing, which is something I'm going to talk about right now. Let me first talk about the location, New York, as far as what I think they're going to do. Like I said, I don't think they're going to give us a full-scale apocalyptic New York like we're expecting. I think they're going to give us something in the middle where they're going to have a few establishing shots of the city center and to kind of really capture the environment and to kind of give us that atmosphere and give us that feeling that we are seeing an apocalyptic New York. But I think they're gonna rely more on interior filming and filming that's like alleyways and narrow streets and things like that, which you could really pull off filming anywhere. You don't need to be in New York. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's what they're probably gonna do as far as that goes. But as far as the Negan thing, it goes back to what Negan and Maggie's journey could be. Like I said, I'm expecting it to be related to CRM in some way, but I don't think that that's what they're gonna do. I think what they're likely gonna do is something along the lines of the group finding out that Rick was traded, but they don't necessarily know it's the CRM. Like, I don't think that that connection is gonna come through right away. Even if there is a link between Commonwealth and CRM, I don't think that it's gonna be as explicit as you might expect. But I do think that the main journey is gonna be them trying to find out what happened to Rick. But I don't think that CRM is gonna be in the picture necessarily right away until the very end. And this is where the Negan prediction comes in. I feel like Negan will in fact either sacrifice himself, like I said, or end up getting severely injured by the CRM militia. And I think at that point, what we're probably gonna see is something similar to what happened to Rick. I think the CRM are gonna capture Negan to figure out why the group is after them. And I think that's gonna be the build up to something that's gonna connect the story from where the spin-off is gonna end with Negan and Maggie and the movies. Obviously, it won't be the first movie because in the first movie, we're really just gonna dive into what really happened to Rick when he was traded to the CRM and years after that, living at the Civic Republic. And I think when it comes to maybe the second movie, it's gonna line up more with where the spin-off might end. And it's gonna link these two stories together. But that's pretty much it. That's everything that I wanted to cover in this video. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.